Tie nicer, faster. Huh?
This way or this way now? This way.
No, Maria. Now it's
The thumb here. Put your thumb in there, and I will. Yeah, and I will tie. Because you got to tie it properly. Not in the center.
No, don't forget this one is pointing up. No, you tie. I see you tie first.
Come now, you can just see that we all.
Never mind, don't
We're
worry.
like kindergarten.
Lucky I still can remember a bit. Okay.
See, this is not tight enough.
Mana put up, Maria?
Yeah, we'll try.
I said can go further up, never mind, because they want thin. Never mind, see you tight. Okay, never mind.
Can no, just move.
Eh,
Hello.
okay. Wire, you want wire? Yeah, I cut some wire. House. Good afternoon. Behind my house, 16 Praya Lane, in 1990.
Okay.
That was the last we did when my grandmother was still alive. Many ladies from the village also came to help because those days it was real family.
That was
Real
about
Gotong, 1990.
that was about 33 years ago.
Yes, that was the last we put up that kind of decoration. So we want to revive the tradition, the history,
Okay.
because that is our identity. It's important.
Okay.
If we don't, we will lose this part of our tradition and our history.
Okay.
Eventually a day will come and we will just know nothing about our past.
Yeah.
And it's such a rich culture, such a rich tradition.
Yes.
Why don't we just carry on and pass it on to the next generation?
Yes.
Because you have the same Assumption Church in PJ, same Assumption Church in Penang,
Okay.
but you don't have the same decoration. Why?
Oh, yes.
Because they don't have any history.
Yes.
We have the history of how the Dutch persecuted the Catholics when they came and took over Malacca.
Okay.
They were reformists.
Okay.
They were from the Protestant, or they were from the Reformed Church.
Okay.
So they kind of banned the Catholic faith,
Okay.
and the faithful had to take the religion,
Okay.
so-called underground, into the hinterland
Okay.
to celebrate the feast. So for this feast also we use sugarcane
Sugarcane.
as a traditional form of decoration.
Okay.
The idea came about by our forefathers who thought it would be a noble idea to use sugarcane so our succeeding generation will know how difficult it was then to be a Catholic. The amount of difficult times that you were put under.
Very
Okay?
true. Very true.
So that is why it's so important to maintain this tradition. So let our young people know that their forefathers were heroes
Very true.
in being able to carry on the faith. Okay, the faith of their ancestors, the faith of our forefathers. Okay, so that is why sugarcane is used. Is to remind the succeeding generations of those difficult years during the Dutch persecution of the Catholics in Malacca.
Okay.
They suppress, they oppress, and when the Dutch became friends with the Portuguese during the Spanish Succession War in Europe, that's when the Dutch became more tolerant and allowed the Catholics to return to the city to profess, to celebrate their feast in public, openly. And that is what I say our forefathers had that idea, that brilliant idea, that noble idea to use sugarcane to remind the generations that once the celebration of the Assumption was held in the sugarcane plantation during Dutch occupation of Malacca, and when, like I say, it was done in secret away from Dutch authorities. So that is the tradition. Nothing to do with the Chinese tradition of Tikong, nothing to do. Same story line more or less. They were also under persecution, and then they used sugarcane, or they helped their celebration in the sugarcane plantation, something like that.
I was nicer than yours.
So
I know.
what I'm trying to say is that idea of using sugarcane is not a copycat. We have our own tradition. You have the Church of Assumption in Penang. They don't use sugarcane. They have no history. You have the Assumption Church in PJ. They don't use sugarcane because they have no history. The history is only in Malacca. I think the only church in this part of the world use sugarcane to decorate the church externally, the route of procession during the Feast of Assumption, 15th of August every year. So we want to keep on that tradition. But it's just difficult now because there is no community that was like it was when I was growing up. We
Okay.
had our grandparents around, we had our aunties around, we had many people around, the fishermen, a lot of people. But we are trying to gather that again, trying to bring the people back to celebrate the feast in such a very traditional, auspicious, really fun way of doing things here.
Very
How
rich.
we come together as community.
Very rich values.
And not only us Catholics, Christians, we get also all the others, the Chinese residents, the Malays, even the Indians, all come and give a helping hand.
Very rich values.
So we want to kind of bring that multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic sense of Malaysian.
Yes, yes, yes.
We're going to celebrate Malaysia Day very soon.
Yes, yes,
That is
yes.
one of the main items. Unity in diversity.
Yes, yes.
Unity in all our differences, but yet that is our strength. Thank you. Correct. Then later we add the flower. Correct. As long as this is up, beautiful. Don't worry, you won't see the difference when you put up. Oh,
no more wire,
okay.
Martin.
There you go. I think you must have competition. This is the atap shoot. Okay, it's original. You cut the atap shoot and then you open up the leaf like we showed you earlier. Okay, and then you roll up to make the konde. Okay, this is actually how it is. Okay, originally from the atap shoot, and then you make it into a konde. A konde is actually a bun. Okay, and then this is original. Okay, now this is interesting. First time I'm using this. Originally, we use what we call papua in the Kristang language, local Portuguese language. We call papua.
What nice?
Okay. In English, they call it evergreen. It's actually a fern, a wild fern you can get from the rubber estates, abandoned rubber estates. But because that one is so difficult to find, so I've improvised this year with this new kind of fern, which is abundantly found almost every hill slope. The most important is this fern can stay green and it doesn't break even after several days. See, that's the most important because it must stay green and it must not crumble. So at least this can stay up for about 3 or 4 days. That's important. So when we put up today, or we start to do today and finish it by tomorrow and put up, it will last at least another couple of days before the feast or after the feast and all that. So that's the important thing. This fern is a new addition. Formerly I used evergreen or papua, now I use this kind of fern. It's just another wild fern that you can get in the estate. Okay? Thank you. There's 2 kinds of species here. Okay. Now, okay, this is the what we call the pakis. Okay, the pakis. This is actually the one that we used to do. We used to lay on the bamboo before we tie the atap. Okay, this is the one. Okay, so this is the pakis that we used to lay on the bamboo before we put our. Amy can put extra the fern. Amy, put extra fern. Never mind, because the fern is a lot. So this is the original, but because now it's so hard to find. But fortunately, I think I already made this thing grow in the kampong. I got this from the kampong, from Lei Kim's house, in front of Lei Kim's house. Okay, so this is another species that can also be used. It's a bit narrower, but it's got a bit of, shall I say, border. You notice this one is a bit more broader, but more green. Okay, this is the pakis that we used to lay on the bamboo before we tie the atap leaf and the wild fern. Okay, so alright, very nice. Thank you. Rubber band, and then later we can see how we can jolo.
Oh, you don't put cotton or what?
The tissue paper, cheaper, wet, and then obviously, and then later we can jolo, or we can just see how we can include. So just this one something new, just to make it colorful. Our ancestors never used this, but we just improvising because we feel that this flower now is abundant, plentiful. But since it's available, so we're going to use. See how? Maybe not for all the arches, but for the main arch. Okay, because it's available. No flowers. Closest no flowers. Closest was this.
We know no flower, but then
Since you have,
additional.
I think it will look prettier. Do you think so, Amy?
Yeah.
Huh? So we will see how to put. Now we just have to. Now we just have to. Never mind, next year. This one we will just have to put some tissue paper.